1954. Far Siberia, a small village, 37 women, 1 man. For 12 years, no one spoke. But in 1966, when government officials arrived in the village, all the women uttered the exact same phrase. "He saved all of us, and we killed him." This phrase made the entire settlement weep. This is a story about silence, self-sacrifice, and the impossible choice of one man. Are you ready? Because this story will make you reconsider everything you know about the truth. November 1954, Krasnoyarsk Krai, the upper reaches of the Yenisei River, the banks of the Tunguska River, a small village. A place whose name is hard to read even on official maps. Nikolaevka, a settlement of 180 people, all families of miners. The only reason for the village's existence, a coal mine 8 kilometers away. The Soviet system worked just like that. Resources were discovered in remote regions, people were sent, and settlements were built. That is how Nikolaevka was born. In 1947, the mine opened. Workers settled with their families. For 7 years they lived here. The nearest town was 140 kilometers away. In winter, the road closed. Until spring, no one could arrive or leave. November 15th, 1954, the morning shift. 63 men descended into the mine. In the village, 37 women, 28 children, 11 elderly people, and 1 man remained. Doctor Mikhail Petrovich Sokolov, 58 years old. In the afternoon at 2:47, an explosion occurred, an accumulation of methane and a spark, a classic mining accident. But the result was catastrophic. The tunnel collapsed. After a 3-hour rescue operation, 2 bodies were recovered. The rest were under the rubble at a depth of 200 meters, inaccessible. In the village, panic, weeping, screams, and one reality. 63 men were dead. The only remaining adult male was the universally disliked Dr. Mikhail. Mikhail Petrovich Sokolov had been in the village since 1947. He was a cold man. He didn't socialize, didn't greet anyone, only did his job. The villagers disliked him because, when vaccinating children, he relentlessly jabbed the needle. When examining the sick, he worked silently, like a robot. He never sat with anyone during communal meals. He never opened the door of his house to anyone. But now, on the evening of November 15th, 1954, he was the only person in charge in the village. The mine director was dead. The party secretary was dead. All the men were dead. The first night was terrible. The women huddled together in the village club in the square, hugging each other. The children cried and cried. The elderly silently retreated to the corners. That night, Mikhail stood at the club door, not entering, waiting until morning. The first snow fell on November 17th, and the road closed. Spring would not come until May. For 6 months, Nikolaevka was completely cut off from the outside world. The 3rd day, the crying stopped. Now it was time to face reality. Mikhail entered the club for the first time. He spoke briefly, clearly, without emotion. The village had a food supply for 6 months, but it was calculated for working men. Now there were 37 women, 28 children, 11 elderly, and 1 man. 77 people in total. Would there be enough food? Mikhail calculated, no. In 4 months, the food will run out. The solution, the forest. Hunt, fish, chop wood. And the women had to do it because there was no one else. The first week was a rebellion. The women refused. We are housewives. We cannot hunt. We cannot chop wood. The state will come. It will save us. Mikhail waited, silently. On the 3rd day, the supplies dwindled. On the 4th day, the children began to starve. On the 5th day, Maria Ivanovna, 23 years old, a young widow, knocked on Mikhail's door. Teach me how to survive. Mikhail looked at her for a long time, then gave her a rifle. He led her into the forest, showed her rabbit tracks. The first week, she caught nothing. The 2nd week, she shot 1 rabbit. The 3rd week, 2. The 4th week, Maria became a hunter. The other women saw and understood, either learn or die. Mikhail was patient. He gave each woman different tasks. The young would hunt, the middle-aged would chop wood, the old would cook and watch the children. December came. The Siberian winter was ruthless. -40 degrees. But order began to form in the village. The women woke up early every morning, went to their tasks. Mikhail, meanwhile, made rounds of all the houses every evening, checking the sick, bandaging wounds. January 1955. The first child was born, a stillborn. Elena's child, conceived 2 months before the mine accident. Mikhail fought for 3 hours. He couldn't save it. Elena became distraught, accused Mikhail. "You killed my child." The village fell silent. Everyone wanted to blame Mikhail, but Mikhail did not respond. He buried the child, treated Elena, and the next morning started work again. In February, the second child was born, alive this time. Mikhail didn't sleep for 3 nights. The baby's temperature wouldn't break. Finally, it broke. The child survived. The mother, Katya, took Mikhail's hand, thanked him. For the first time, a woman thanked him. In March, the snow began to melt. The road was still 2 months from opening, but the village was alive. Of 77 people, 76 had survived. Only 1 infant had died. April 1955. The road opened. Mikhail wrote a report to be sent to the state authorities. In the report, he wrote, "The village of Nikolaevka, following the mine accident, is economically non-viable and must be evacuated." But the report was never sent, because the only way out of the village was in Mikhail's hands. And Mikhail, after writing the report, burned it. From May 1955 to October 1966, 12 years passed. And for those 12 years, the village of Nikolaevka lived completely cut off from the outside world. How? This is the darkest and most amazing part of the story. After Mikhail burned the report, he gathered the women. He offered them 2 options. Either the state comes, evacuates us, sends our children to orphanages, and scatters us across different cities, or we stay here, create our own order, and tell no one. The women were in shock. Stay here? How? Mikhail explained. The mine wasn't working, but the warehouse was full. There was a coal supply for 2 years. It could be sold. They could sell forest resources, fish and game. They would travel to the nearest town, Yeniseisk. They would sell, not to government officials, but to traders. The black market. It was illegal, but it was survival. The first year, the women hesitated. The second year, they adapted. The third year, Nikolaevka was already an unregistered village. The state forgot about them, or perhaps didn't want to remember. A small loss saved them from a lot of bureaucracy. Mikhail worked systematically. He gave each woman a role: hunters, woodcutters, fishers, traders. As the children grew, he trained them too. 10-year-olds learned to use a rifle, 12-year-olds to fish, 14-year-olds to chop wood. A new order formed in the village. The patriarchal system collapsed. Now the women made the decisions. Mikhail was only an advisor and a doctor. But one thing did not change. Mikhail was still alone. He lived in his house alone, never getting close to anyone. The women treated him with respect, but not love, because Mikhail was unfeeling. He never smiled, never joked, only did his work. In 1958, a young girl, 16-year-old Natasha, fell in love with Mikhail. She knocked on his door. Mikhail did not open it. Natasha cried. The other women comforted her. Mikhail said nothing. In 1960, Mikhail fell ill, pneumonia. For 3 days, he lay with a high fever. The women treated him. When he recovered, he thanked no one. He just returned to work. In 1963, a fire broke out in the village. 3 houses burned down. Mikhail opened his home. The families lived in his house temporarily for 3 months. Mikhail slept in the corner. When the houses were rebuilt, everyone moved out. Mikhail was alone again. 12 years passed like this. The village was alive. The children grew up, some married, new babies were born. There were deaths, the elderly passed away. But the village continued to exist, and Mikhail aged from 58 years to 70. His hair turned white, his hands began to tremble. But every morning, he started work. October 1966. Mikhail was already very old. One morning he couldn't get up. Maria, that first hunter, now 35 years old, went to his house. She found him in bed, exhausted, sick. Mikhail looked at her. For the first time, there was something in his eyes. Peace. Maria asked him, "Why did you keep us here? Why didn't we leave?" Mikhail answered, "Because if you had left, you all would have been separated. Your children would have been taken from you. But if you stayed here, you would stay together. Your families would be with you." Maria cried. For the first time, she understood. Mikhail hadn't held them captive. He had saved them. 2 days later, Mikhail died. There was silence in the village. The women gathered, made a decision. They would report to the state. But first, they would bury Mikhail. November 1966. Government officials arrived in Nikolaevka. They learned of the unregistered village. During an investigation into the black market, the village's name surfaced. The officials were in shock. How had a village survived for 12 years? The women began to tell everything. The mine accident, Mikhail's system, what they had endured. The officials asked, "Where is Dr. Mikhail?" The women pointed. A fresh grave at the edge of the village. A simple stone above it. The officials asked when he died. The women answered, 2 weeks ago. The officials suspected something was wrong. They checked the files, studied Mikhail's past, and found it. Mikhail Petrovich Sokolov was born in 1896. In 1918, he joined the Red Army. In 1920, he received his medical education. In 1930, he was caught in a major scandal in the Soviet Union. The charge, embezzlement of state property. The sentence, 20 years in the Gulag. In 1947, his term ended. He was released, but his conviction was not expunged. He could not live in Moscow. He was sent to the remote village of Nikolaevka. The officials asked the women, "Did you know about Mikhail's past?" The women answered, "We didn't know, but it wouldn't have mattered." The officials asked, "Why?" And at that moment, 37 women uttered the exact same phrase. "He saved all of us, and we killed him." The officials were surprised. "What do you mean?" Maria explained. "We did not love him. For 12 years we did not love him. Every day he was near, but we rejected him, did not include him in our families, left him in solitude. And he died alone. It wasn't the illness that killed him, it was the loneliness." The women cried. The officials were silent. When they returned to the city, they wrote a report. But in the report, there was no crime. Only a story. 37 women, 1 man, and a story of 12 years. In 1967, the village of Nikolaevka was officially closed. The women and children were resettled in nearby towns, but Mikhail's grave remained there, at the edge of the village, alone. In 2004, 50 years later, the elderly Maria died in Krasnoyarsk. She was 73 years old. In her will, she wrote one thing: "Bury me in Nikolaevka, next to Mikhail." And so they did. At Maria's funeral, there were 12 people, all from that village, all the children who remembered those times. Now elderly people. Next to Mikhail's grave, they dug Maria's grave, and on the stone they wrote, "Maria Ivanovna Petrova, 1931. The woman who loved Mikhail, but too late." This story was not about self-sacrifice and not about love. This story was about how blind a person can be, about how we can fail to notice the one who is right beside us. 37 women survived for 12 years, but during those 12 years, they did not see the truth. Mikhail sacrificed himself for them, and they understood this only after his death. Sometimes the greatest pain is realizing this after the loss.